going this way all the way to the corners, as well as the other lands in the Cove. There was quite a bit of debate there and concern about what we were doing, but we basically, and on a 4-3 vote or close vote anyways, which registered a lot of concern, we said, yeah, go forward, but we got big concerns about how we're going forward. And so what came out of that meeting was essentially, instructions to Michael to move forward, but Michael recognizing that there was really mixed enthusiasm for that and a lot of concern, and I've just been talking to Michael about how we're going to bring a question back to council to clarify exactly within that large area where council wants to focus its attention for rezoning options. And maybe I'll turn it to Michael. But it's a fair question, because I would agree with your premise that what was sort of, that you can look at those two events and go, these don't match.
Yeah, I do look at it that way.
Well, I'm going to take the opposite view and tell you that they in fact do match, because the bylaws that or the framework for potential bylaws that I brought forward on Monday night were in fact bylaws that were done in conjunction with this team. So you can rest, you may not agree with them, which is fair enough, but to know that there's been integration between the work that I'm doing specifically on those pieces and the big picture perspective that Alan is looking at, there is the integration. And at this point, it's Alan's work and it's my framework, and it ultimately has to be council's bylaw. But there has been integration. So you've been at 2 meetings, and behind the scenes, there's a lot of back and forth between us that produce these 2 different products.
And a clarification, Bob. Fitch, yes. It was 105 units, not 180.
I know it's 185.
Much of the master plan as presented is a compilation of work of working groups within it, and that's especially true of the surplus lands working group. And so I want to refer to that particular aspect of the master plan, because the terms of reference set by the municipal council to this surplus lands working group were very exemplary. Yeah, they told them your instructions are to come up with policies being mindful of the OCP, Bowen's role in the Islands Trust, and the green zone of GVRD. And of course that included the Snug Cove Village Plan, which is part of the OCP, and it was created as a hard-fought compromise in the year 2006, just before this council was elected. That is official policy, the Snug Cove Village Plan. Well, in my view, much of the land proposals in the surplus lands on Lot 1 and elsewhere do not comply with many of the policies that they were instructed to adhere to. I won't go into that now, that's for another day. But, so, they didn't, the important thing is on Monday evening, the municipal council instructed the planner, and I quote from the planning report, to prepare bylaws to amend the OCP and the land use bylaw. The proposed bylaw amendments will be considered in the context of the proposed Snug Cove master plan. Well, the master plan, in the planner's own words, is the consultant team's vision for Snug Cove and not that of the municipality or council. I should add also not the vision of the people of Bowen Island, because it hasn't even come to proper due process, public hearing, and official acceptance as policy. The policy is the Snug Cove Village Plan. So I'm wondering why municipal council would be instructing the planner to prepare bylaws that would be considered in the context of the proposed Snug Cove master plan, which is nothing more than one consultant team's vision. That's a question.
Yeah, I can't answer that either. That's a council and planning.
Yeah, well, I'll ask any members of council, please.
What we're doing there, Eric, is looking to sell some land for the purpose of retiring debt. When the using the appraisal values that were sort of provided for the lands that were included in what was voted on Monday. The dollar value, I'll get it wrong, but it's $15–20 million worth of appraised value. We only need to recover $2.5 million. So what's on the table is vastly more than we need to sell. So when I say that the council has to sort of go through a process of targeting that larger area into some discrete parcels that the rezoning will basically bring forward. And the public process is yet to happen. And the rezonings are essentially, can include OC2 amendments and amendments to the land use bylaw. That's all a public process ahead of us. So, but number one, it'll be sort of focusing on what we think are the most appropriate pieces of land to develop options for, to bring forward public discussion for the purpose of sale and retiring debt that we currently carry. But I think the important point is that there's vastly more money in those lands than what we need to recover. And so it'll be a small part of the total land base.
You know, I appreciate that, but you're not really addressing my point. I'm just simply saying that those developments should be evaluated and assessed through existing public policy, OCP policy, not through what looks like creating new policies that will accommodate those developments.
Well, I think we're in a hybrid zone here. I think we have basically one way to sort of think about this whole thing is test this plan in some small lot developments and see if it works. See if it applies and makes sense. I mean, that's one way to actually evaluate a plan, is to apply it to some small parcels, treat those as small steps, but important steps, and in the process, use that as a tool to sort of evaluate the merits of the plan. Dave, you've got your hand up?
I just wanted to also answer Eric's question a little bit. Eric,
Yeah?
you might remember the surplus lands, I'll stand up. The surplus lands working group, they recommended, their first recommendation, it was early last fall, I think. The land for disposition was all in that lot one.
Yeah.
It's relatively undeveloped area. And the reason for that was because the lands within the Cove that are available for surplus lands, there was no master plan for it. So part of what we did was create a master plan so that it allowed us to look in the Cove where we already have land that is on, land that's already disturbed. It's not land that's forested. We could look at that for disposition. So that's one of the reasons we're looking at that map. We used a master plan because it helps us do that. Now we still got to go through processes as Bob has described, but by doing a master plan, it gave us some confidence that we could do some disposition to land within the Cove. So close it. Okay.
Thank you.
But that's not what you voted to do on Monday night.
Yeah, what we voted to do on Monday night, there was, yeah, I recognize your point. It's a good one. Bob's answered it. But what we're not going to be selling all that land. What we're looking at is a process for rezoning. And what Michael was doing was not just looking at the land, but also looking at the process, the way of rezoning the land in a flexible way that allowed us to look at possible sales opportunities.
And another reason of my recommendation was in fact to move forward, to get something going. And you take an idea that's in some kind of report and move it into a bylaw. You put a bylaw in front of people, then you have something for people to respond to. There's been no commitments by the council to move forward with a bylaw other than asking me to prepare a draft. And after that, it's going to be council's decision how far they want to go with the bylaw that I put forward, slash it, change it, do whatever they want with it. But I think what council is saying, let's move the process forward. And for me to move forward and write the bylaw, I better get on the ferry.
That said, so that we can have sort of a graceful conclusion to this and not just sort of an access. I thank you very much. I think we sort of completed the task at hand. It was a good discussion, a great presentation, and a great discussion. So thank you very much for the questions. Concerns were raised. Thank you to the planning team, Alan and your crew.
Meeting's adjourned.